And we are back. Boy, chat, we just trying to give you some football, man. We trying to talk some regular stuff with you. We try to avoid a lot of mess if possible, man. But the owner, general manager, wouldn't let us have a good day of freedom. Now, just to give y'all a little update on the program and how this bye week is going to go, me and Broaddus are still going to come to work every day. We work hard right here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to kind of do a roster thing, kind of give you like a mid-season review, a bye week review, where we're at on these guys. Do we think we can get better? Should we be looking at guys during the draft? I think that'll be a cool little thing to do. I think me and Bryan may get a good argument or two out of that. But
yeah.
I just wanted to touch on the owner general manager thing, Bryan Broaddus, just a little bit and get your thoughts on it. I did a live stream earlier, and people kind of heard what I had to say, talking about Jerry Jones and his comments and things like that, and how we doubled down here. But I think that just can't be good for your football team as a whole, or just the optics of, how people's looking at your football team, coming after the radio guys, coming after the fans, and, implying that people may not know what's going on. Bryan, one thing that I was saying on my show earlier is something I say on this show all the time, Bryan. We're just dudes with cameras and microphones. Yeah. I say that kind of jokingly, but I do say that as a form of protest, right? Like, yeah, we do have cameras and mics, but we know what's going on. We knew that we weren't good enough at running back. We knew that we weren't good enough at tackle. We knew that the whole Trey Lance trade was a weird idea, and that we probably would have needed that pick to go get a running back. There's a lot of things that we know that we eventually get proven right during the season. So my whole idea, Bryan, is that, hey, man, we're not like the expert of experts, but we got eyes, we can see. And I just think Jerry Jones belittled a lot of people that I think had a lot of support for him. And he kind of looked down on a bunch of people, and he probably shouldn't have done that. Optic-wise.
Yeah. I appreciate what you said, and being involved with 105.3 The Fan, Sean Sharif, Bobby Belt, RJ Choppy are teammates of mine. And, and there's a lot of time. First off, let me say this too. There's a lot of responsibility on these interviews, a lot of responsibilities. And it's not that you show up and you're not prepared. I know there's times where Bobby and Sean and RJ have asked me questions like, hey, if you were to ask Jerry this, how do you think he would take it? Or, maybe they reach out to other media members and say, what kind of questions do we need to how do we need to frame this? There's a lot of prep that goes into this. It's not just hey, let's fly by the seat of our pants and hope for the best here. And so everybody takes their job very seriously, because we know it's very important that we do our very best, to try. We understand on a global level that comments that Jerry Jones makes are, Cowboy fans around the world are taking them in. And unfortunately today, and we get criticized a lot at The Fan for not asking tough questions. When you guys going to ask, and it's not every single fan, but there's quite a few that, like, you guys are in the back pocket of Jerry. You don't ask tough questions. You don't, and we take that personally too. We really, really do. I mean, anytime you interview Jerry or Steven, you want to ask questions, not only for your own understanding, but thinking of the fan in mind, thinking of the fan out there who might be in Jackson, Mississippi, or the fan that's in New York City, or the fan that's in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We're trying to answer questions for them, or ask questions for them. And I thought today was the worst possible day, not only for us on The Fan, but the worst possible day for Jerry Jones. Yeah. And I say that in a way that for all these years, we've had a great relationship with Jerry Jones. And today felt like the first time that we were under attack for our relationship with him. Or, and we were trying, and Sean and Bobby and RJ were trying to ask questions to get answers. They weren't trying to make Jerry feel terrible or demean his work or anything. They were just trying to ask questions. And, every single time it's Jerry's one of these guys. I worked for Jerry for 14 years. I've seen Jerry mad, and I've seen Jerry disappointed, and I've seen Jerry frustrated. I've seen Jerry happy, but today felt like that really I haven't seen this side of Jerry on the radio. You know, he's had times where he's been a little short with his answers. He's been, you know, a little curt, you know, maybe a little, you know, little punchy. But today, you know, he took it to another level. And it's disappointing because I know how much this bothers him. Not the radio interview, but the way his team's playing right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is his team. He is the general manager. The buck stops with him. Sure. They're not playing well. I think he's really, really frustrated by the fact that he has had to live with comments that he's made about the all-in stuff. I think that the whole thing with Dak, that contract, Ceedee Lamb, Zach Martin. I mean, he's got all these players that he's earmarked these contracts as guys that he's relying on to play at a very high level, and they're not playing at a high level right now. And that's bothering him. You know, that, hey, listen, I can understand having to play with backup guys, being a little shorthanded, but my quarterback, my receiver, my right guard, my right tackle, you know, just my cornerback, you can throw Diggs in there.
Sure.
You know, they're not playing at a high level, and their team is 3-3. And you know, it's a collection. Their head coach, the coaching staff. I mean, everybody is, you know, it's not where it needs to be. And I think that's his frustration. And the more that Sean and Bobby and RJ asked him questions about that, I think that it just brought it home even further to him. And yeah, go ahead, sir.
You know, Bryan, I'm a big fan of yours, so I hear you tell, you know, talk to us all the time about that one time Jerry was out here messing up and you was kicking his ass and he ran up on you in the hallway and said, "Hey man, you whooped my ass, but you're being fair about it."
Right.
I think the morning radio guys were being very fair about the questions that they were asking. If you're Jerry,
Sure.
you almost got to ask yourself, I mean, what did you think they was going to ask you? Like how did you think we were going to come at you? And, you know, when he's winning Hall of Fame stuff and Executive of the Year, we say good things about him. And to be fair, I do think, you know, the morning show gets a lot of criticism for, you know, talking about food and movies when they should be talking about football. But when they finally ask some good football questions, man, I got to give them credit, man. Shouts out to those guys. They asked some really good questions. And I think Jerry doesn't have a good understanding that football fans are much smarter than they once were.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Our audience,
film, the internet, Bryan Broaddus and Voch, and what we do for all the people out there, we're much smarter.
I think we play a role in what happens. You know, there's times where I remember doing a draft show and talking about Joey Bosa and comparing him to Greg Ellis, and people were like, "Well, damn, Broaddus, I mean, you know, you're comparing this guy's, you know, I mean, people get influenced, good and bad, by our shows. And I love everybody that watches our show, consumes our show, interacts with us. I mean, it's important. The fans are important. And I knew when I was working for the Cowboys or working for NFL teams, I knew how important the fan base was, you know, but you're absolutely right. Fans this day and age are far more educated than when I started in the league in 1992. Far more. They watch film, they take in content, they watch podcasts, they do their own research, they watch with their own eyes. You don't need to be a former NFL scout to watch and see if someone's playing poorly. Now, you don't know if they busted their assignment or was that somebody else's assignment, but you can see good play or not. And that's today. I was really, really, really sad because, and I'll be real honest with you here, Voch, Jerry Jones has done a lot for me, a lot. And he's given me two careers. He gave me a career in scouting and he gave me a career in media and got me to where I am today with the media part. I owe him that. Today was hard for me to see him lash out like that because, you know, Sean and RJ were trying to do their job with Bobby. And Jerry, you know, Jerry had really just had enough. And this is the first time that I felt really, really bad for him, because usually Jerry's very thick-skinned about things. You know, usually he is very much I could take it, just be fair. I could take it, just be fair. And, you know, today left me thinking that somebody in the organization needs to pull Jerry aside and say, we don't need to do media anymore. We don't need to do the after the game media sessions in front of your locker room with 35 media members and then 3 guys talking to your head coach. The focus needs to be on your head coach and what happened in the game and all that. And I sound like I'm trying to tell Jerry Jones what to do, but for all our sakes, he needs to step aside from that. He doesn't need to be doing 2 radio shows a week. Other general managers around the league, you might hear from them from the combine or the Senior Bowl or something like that. You don't hear from them twice a week and then once after the game. And I just think for his sake, maybe he needs to look at not doing as much media availability, because I hated to see him put in the situation, but I hated to see the response that he gave to my teammates. Yeah. Nobody won today. Nobody won today with this. And in my opinion, now there's people out there like, hey, thank God somebody held Jerry's feet to the fire. Okay. Good. If that's what you want to play, hey, that's good. This organization has not been in a championship for a long time or won a championship for a long time. I get it. But I didn't want to see him go through that. And I didn't want to see Sean and RJ and Bobby go through that. Sure. And I think it was unfortunate all around. And so maybe this is an opportunity for Jerry Jones to step back. Now, what bothered me even more is Diana Rossini from the owners meeting in Atlanta got a comment from Jerry Jones, and then he basically doubled down on, like, hey, it's a small print there.
You ain't got to read it. Basically, Bryan Broaddus, he's just saying that he was basically upset that the radio guys asked him, guys that are on his payroll asked him, but he would have listened to a fan. He would have listened to somebody that actually knew ball, which is another insult on top of that. So
yeah. So there you go. That's, he doubled down there, and that to me that's unfortunate right there, because we're trying to, in our best, ask questions that the fans would want to know. I mean, when you interview and you're doing it on the radio, you're trying to extract information from that interviewee, and you're trying to do it, hey, from a fan's perspective, what would they like to hear? What would they like to know? And, he basically said, well, if that was a fan talking, well, Sean and RJ and them were thinking of the fan in mind, asking questions on behalf of fans. Fans want us to, hold this front office accountable for the things that, the way the season has gone. Yeah. And, and I think people have had enough. And today I think Jerry Jones had enough. And that's the unfortunate thing about this whole day. I hope that the Cowboys look at it, and, Jerry doesn't have to apologize to Sean and RJ and Bobby. He doesn't have to, but there needs to be a working relationship to the point. And for 14, 15 years, there has been a very good one. Today felt very personal. Yeah. Today felt very personal. And that part of it was, I think, unfortunate.
Let's talk about some football. If y'all want my thoughts on it, I listened to the whole live stream. I listened to the whole call and interview and all that. So check out my previous stream. Yeah. So, but me and Broaddus gonna get into some football. All right.
Yeah. Thank you, folks, for allowing me to have a brief moment of that. And like I said, I owe Jerry Jones a lot.
Sure,
I do. I am here in the media today because of him putting me on DallasCowboys.com. They didn't have, the Jones family didn't have to do that for me. Yeah. And they did. So I understand you have to be critical, and for me personally, it was a rough day. Yeah. For the fans, I hope you got what you wanted out of that, and I'm not saying that as like, I hope you got your blood there. No, I'm just saying it. If you got your questions answered today, good for you. Yeah. Good for you. All right, how about this, man? Let's talk about a position or two. What do you say?
Don't get fired, Brian, because we about to criticize the hell out this team real quick. So don't get replaced on YouTube, because we about to talk about how bad some of these guys are.
I have a feeling that you and I, if that happened, would come out the other side okay on this.
We'll be all right.
I think we'll be all right. We'll be all right. All right, hey, a brother.
Yes, sir.
Wide receivers. I'm going to start with Ceedee Lamb, and I want a big picture thought of Ceedee Lamb through 6 weeks, we're not going to focus on the contract or anything like that, but focus on Ceedee Lamb, what you've seen this first 6 weeks of him playing football.
I think it's unfortunate that a lot of Ceedee Lamb's performance and production is tied directly to like 3 other people or like 3 other units.
Sure.
If your play caller is humming, your quarterback is on, if we can get some good pass pro in there, then Ceedee Lamb will be incredible. And I think that's one thing that I think Jerry kind of missed on us. We ain't going back to that, but Jerry talked about this last game. We can really look at the last couple of years and kind of see patterns here, right?
Sure.
So, Brian, how many times have we watched the film in the morning and go, damn, boy, we had a really good game on offense this week, and then we'll watch the film next week. We can't have that same kind of film that we have, right?
Same game, yeah.
That creativity, that movement around. We talked about it on last night's show, that they did a really good job of getting Lamb open and the crossing route and kind of setting that natural pick.
Yeah.
But we don't do that multiple times, right?
Right.
So, of course, you want Ceedee Lamb to be like your main guy. You want him to be the guy that you can funnel your offense through. I honestly think Ceedee Lamb right now is a guy that's going to live and die by what you give him on offense. Now, is there a such thing as a receiver that can be great running curl routes 56% of the time? It can't be, Brian.
In 1964, maybe. Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
Not today, yeah.
But CD's a dude when he's on the move, Brian, when he's slanting across, he's getting yak yards on the back end and all this kind of stuff. I like Ceedee Lamb in that role. So we can also talk about this, Bryan Broaddus. We're not going to talk about it from a money standpoint, but I do think, from a leadership standpoint, right? You're wide receiver 1. I think CD does a little bit of, pouting when guys should be, when guys would be looking at him. We have a very young wide receiver core, and Brandon Cooks is out. So Ceedee Lamb is the bona fide old dude of the crew. I think if he starts pouting, I think that creates other players that'll pout when things go bad, So yeah, Ceedee Lamb at this point, is he the superstar that he was last year? Absolutely not. Last year, he was a guy that at any given time he can go off for 190 some yards, but I don't think his play call is helping him much.
I don't think the play caller is helping him at all. And I think that we saw a really good example of when the play caller does help him, the crossing route. You mentioned the one-headed catch. I think the red zone turnovers are really unfortunate. I think the vertical route and not running the out, the quarterback throwing the out instead of the vertical route, I didn't want to believe about missing training camp. I thought these were 2 veteran guys. I thought they were going to pick right up where they left. Obviously, that's not the case. Sure. I think he's frustrated with. I think he's more frustrated with the play caller and the way the scheme's working than he is the quarterback. I wanted to believe that maybe there was a little bit of disconnect between him and the quarterback. I don't think that's the case. I think there's a disconnect right now between why am I watching other receivers around the league have this success, and Ceedee Lamb is one of the best players you got. I mean, he's a game-breaking type of player, but right now he sure doesn't feel like it with the way this offense is playing. Yeah, especially his role in the offense and the way it's going.
To be fair, though, Brian, one thing Ceedee Lamb does really well, and we could just watch film from the past few weeks. He gets a lot of attention. Now, absolutely. If you're the play caller, now is this your job to go, all right, man, we gotta find a way to get Turpin, Tolbert, Brooks, and Flournoy involved now, because if they're going to be hyper focused on Lamb and hyper focused on Ferguson, it's a fantastic time to get those guys going. But so yeah, CD does do his job in that way.
I'll circle back on Brandon Cooks because of the injury. Sure. And I'll go right to Jalen Tolbert. Thoughts on Jalen Tolbert?
I think Jalen Tolbert is having a solid year from what Jalen Tolbert's expectations are. Sure. I think if you go, Voch, you say Jalen Tolbert's having a good year. I'll say yes, or a good year for his expectations.
Right.
Is he having the year that reflects the camp that he's had? That's where I don't know. That's where I'm kind of in the middle there, because Jalen Tolbert in camp, he showed me like, hey, he's ready to be a dude, Bryan Broaddus. Jalen Tolbert shows us he's ready to step up and be a bona fide wide receiver 2 if we need him to be. I don't think Jalen Tolbert is a bona fide wide receiver 2 yet. I think he's more like a wide receiver 3, and I think we're like missing like a wide receiver 2 kind of guy. Him stepping up for Brandon Cooks, he's just doing his job. Jalen Tolbert kind of, I think he was a guy that's I don't want to say that you kind of just worked him in slowly or anything like that, but it's like you need Jalen Tolbert now. You need him. And as a guy that you need, is he a guy that's giving you, everything that you asking for? I think he had a really good game in Pittsburgh. He had like 10 targets, 7 catches, and 87 yards, but that's per having 10 targets. You know what I mean? Right. But 43 yards in Detroit, 24 yards in New York, 42 yards in Baltimore. I want Jalen Tolbert to consistently be a dude that I can count on. But this can also go back to your play caller. Because if your play caller is humming, what kind of dude is Jalen Tolbert? Yep. Is Jalen Tolbert a weekly 80-something yard guy? If he's a weekly 80-something yard guy, I can be like, all right, cool, Jalen Tolbert's doing his job. But he's not that weekly yet.
I totally agree with you on this one. I think that he needs to be an 80-yard guy. I think he needs to find a way to get more involved in what they're trying to do. I think there's some progress is made. I questioned his mental toughness at camp. He showed a great deal of mental toughness to the way that he competed, the way he beat Brooks out. He deserved the opportunity. He's a very capable player. I wish he would have come down. I wish he'd have come down with that ball the other day that was thrown a little short. Sure. I wish Dak was able to step up and get the ball. There's times when they've called plays and he's kind of been the primary guy where he's been able to deliver. I think the Pittsburgh route across the end zone for the game winner was outstanding on his part. Sure. I need to see more of that, though. Mm-hmm. That's what I need to see more of him for sure. And I think he's capable of that. But you're right about the play caller. I think you can kind of tie in a lot of these skill guys to what's going on with the play caller.
Bryan, do you think Jalen Tolbert has reached the Terrence Williams, Cole Beasley level yet, or you think he's like still kind of under guys like that?
I think he's still under guys like that right now. I kind of felt like that. There's people I know in our in the comment section that like, hey, you guys are Bryan, you're nuts. He's not as good as what Michael Gallup was. I'll battle you on that right now. Sure. I think if you look in down out, that he's a better player. I think he's more reliable than what Michael Gallup was. But, if you believe that he is that level or below, I'll fight you on that because I do think right now I can rely on him more than I could rely on Michael Gallup last year.
Yeah. And I think that's very important to say, like last year's Michael Gallup, because last year Michael Gallup gave you nothing. Like he gave you one game, that was Green Bay, when everybody was just kind of whooped. But like prime Michael Gallup was 1,000-yard receiver. Like he was like what 1,300 yards receiving or something like that. Yeah. 7 or 8 touchdowns. Like if you can get Tolbert to be that Michael Gallup, like sophomore, like second year Michael Gallup, I think you're onto something.
Jalen Brooks.
He hasn't done nothing. He hadn't done nothing for you. And he was a guy that I thought him and Jalen Tolbert was kind of going to be on the same level. And I thought that he was going to be a guy that'll separate himself because he's a pure X receiver. But if Jalen Brooks was inactive next week versus San Francisco or the week after versus San Francisco, I wouldn't lose sleep. He hasn't done much to earn his keep.
Yeah, it was the adjusting catch across the middle for 10 yards where they didn't challenge the spot and all that. Really nice play. But I'm with you on this. I felt like that Tolbert and Brooks were going to battle, and I thought that Brooks was going to show the more of the mental toughness. I know you and I talked about it in the summertime and stuff. I felt like when that thing started, there was 2 guys that were even, and then Tolbert kind of ran away with him from that. They need a lot more from Jalen Brooks in the second half. Yeah. He needs to find ways to separate. He needs to find ways to make more plays. When he's asked to block at the point of attack, when they run the ball, when they do run the ball, he needs to be effective doing that. If he has to play special teams, whatever. But they need more, not only from Tolbert, they need more from Brooks as well. Sure. How about Turpin?
Which is a fantastic segue, Bryan, because if you think about it like this, right? We've been talking about play caller.
Yeah.
The play caller can make Lamb better. The play caller can make Tolbert better. I don't think the play caller can make Brooks better. I think if the play caller was fantastic, I don't think Brooks makes any movement there. But if the play caller was better, Kevontae Turpin would be much better.
I agree.
If the play caller was better, Kevontae Turpin would be much, much better. He is your most explosive player on offense. He could probably beat everybody in the foot race. But we talk about creativity. If Ben Johnson had him, boy, Turpin be going crazy out there with them. But Turpin kind of runs the same orbit motion, bubble, triple option, pitch bubble guy. Or he ran the seam one time, or besides that, he's running some jet sweep. We don't get creative with Turpin. I think if Turpin had a much more fleshed out game plan, I think I think Turpin will be good to go. And it's the problem I have with Mike McCarthy is that we're far too past the idea that Turpin's too new or he's not acclimated. He's been in your system long enough. You know who you know exactly who Turpin is. He's not coming off the USFL or wherever he came from. He's not from the other league anymore. He didn't play USFL.
He was USFL. Yeah, go ahead.
One of them. Right? He didn't play 2 football seasons in 1 year. He's had a whole camp. He's acclimated. He's no longer a new guy. You should have a fully fleshed out package. Just like San Francisco got a package for use check. They got a long list of plays on that damn sheet that say for use check. I'm sure that Ben Johnson got a long ass list of plays for Laporta, for St. Brown, for this guy. I think our play sheet for Kevontae Turpin is like 4 plays, and
you can write it on a bar napkin.
You can write on a receipt on a stamp, Bryan Broaddus. You just run those same 5 plays when you could do so much more with Turpin. Play calling letting you down.
Yeah, no, I felt like, to me, this is one of those when you watch him with ball in hand, and I know the other day he didn't separate on that 4th and 2. You know, they tried to, I give Arnold a lot of credit, the corner from Detroit. He covered him up on that. You know, Turpin couldn't get away from him. Dak tries to get the ball back to him. But those routes there needs to be more of that kind of stuff. There needs to be more of him being involved. There needs to be more of him setting up stuff. There needs to be more of him swinging the ball, not the screens, things like, not the jet sweep, but there needs to be more of getting the ball in his hands. He is a very, very capable player. He's an explosive player. I think that, at one time I thought, oh, this is just kind of a gadget guy. Yeah, he's more than just a gadget guy. And you're right about his experience, the time on task. He should have that playlist that you're talking about, that the others, the other weaponry that teams have around the league. He should be in that mix as well. Okay, Ryan Flournoy.
I would like it if the play caller didn't let that fumble get to him, right?
I hope not.
I think I think whenever you see him, he just flashes, whether it be preseason or the one play he was out there, he just kind of, I think it's something there, Brian. We just have to figure out exactly what it is, and I think your play caller can fix him. I think Flournoy is kind of now competing with Jalen Brooks and them, and I think if Brandon Cooks is going to be inactive, I think your time is now to figure out what you have in Ryan Flournoy. Hey, Brian, I know he's a rookie, but I looked at him on the film. He was just standing next to somebody. That's a big old dude, man.
6'3" dude. Yeah, this is where, I mentioned him in some of the run game stuff. I think he had 3 opportunities as a point of attack player, and he could have got called for holding 2 of the 3 times. I mean, he's got to learn, he's got to learn how to get his hands inside and not hold and things like that. But this is a very, very capable guy. The learning curve I thought was going to be pretty steep. He's a good-looking kid, and he catches the ball well. The fumble, he's just got to learn. He's got to put the ball. He's got to change hands when he knows he's in traffic. Now that it's on tape, he had 2 different Lion defenders trying to punch the ball out of his hands. So, obviously there was some type of a little scouting report. Hey, try and go after this guy. He's fumbled in the preseason. Go after him if you get the opportunity. But I think this kid right here, you're right about that he needs more in these games.
Sure.
His ability to run routes, I think for a big, tall guy is good. I think he plays with some knee bend. His ability to get in and out of breaks, I think, is really, really good. And I think he catches the ball well enough too. Yeah, there's something that needs to be done with that kid right there.
Sure.
Because he's got some talent to him. All right, the final one of the receivers is Brandon Cooks. And I think Brandon Cooks, me personally, I feel like that I'm interested to hear what you have to say, but I think that Brandon Cooks probably was banged up in the times that he was playing. I don't know exactly when he got hurt, but he didn't look like the same player, Voch.
Yeah, he was if you listen to our media friends and colleagues and all that, they talk about him in training camp. Oh, Cooks can still fly. He can still run with the best of them. And we didn't see no kind of flying in the regular season so far. We just haven't seen him fly. I know he had a touchdown in the first game versus Cleveland. And it's how he gets touchdowns, Brian. Right? He line him in the slot and run to the corner. That's how he gets touchdowns.
Right.
And he had 8 scores last year. So I imagine, hey, let's just build on that success, which is a common theme of me coming back talking about this offense, Brian. Let's build on what we did last year. Let's build on that. Let's stack games or whatever. But Brandon Cooks ran into a little bit of a setback. Now, can you play call to help him? 100%. You say this all the time, Brian. I totally agree. Everywhere he goes, Saints, Patriots, Rams, whatever, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. Every single time he's 1,000-yard receiver, but he can't get it going with us. I wonder why that's the case, Brian. I don't think we have a plan for Brandon Cooks. If he's really, let's just say he's healing and he comes back as one of your fastest players, one of your big play players, right? I think you have to creatively use him. I don't think you could just roll any of these guys out and just be like, all right, y'all, we all going to run the same route, mirrored on both sides of the field, and Dak is just going to do his thing. Nah, man, you got to have plans for these guys. You can't ask Brandon Cooks to run the same routes that Flournoy is going to run, because that's how you run into the Jair Alexander thing that we ran into last year. So I think everybody needs a certain type of thing, but just what I'm just assuming here, I don't think your play caller's playbook is all that nuanced to where everybody has their own sheets. So Brandon Cooks, I do think there's hope for him. And I do think he can run, because when he would beat people and Dak will overthrow him and like, man, that's 6 points, we'll be close. But there was definitely something wrong with him the past couple of weeks, Brian.
When we tie this thing up, has this group met your expectations or performed below your expectations? And it's a hard question because of the play caller. We keep circling back to that.
Sure.
And so could things change? We saw last year, week 7, things changed. Are you expecting the same? I know I asked you, are they at your expectations or below? But if you want to tie it into, hey, I think they're going to do something different with these guys the next 11 weeks.
I'll answer both those questions, Brian. I don't think they're going to do very much. I think they're going to do I think they're going to do what they've always done. I think they're going to beat up on bad teams. I think they're going to have close fights with good to solid teams. I think they're going to throw.
But as a group, this wide receiver group.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay,
that's exactly what I'm talking about. I think some games we're going to line up out here. We're going to go, man, we're running pick routes, Brian. We're running sprint motion, boy. We are doing this, man. We ran a double, triple screen from both sides of the field, Brian. And some days you're gonna run out there, and it all depends on your play caller, Brian. It's all gonna depend on your play caller. Now, is this unit meeting my expectations? I did want to add another receiver. I want, like in the draft, free agents. I wanted to add just another receiver. But at the end of the day, Ceedee Lamb last year, Ceedee Lamb this year. Cooks is out, but Cooks is kind of here or whatever. He's just kind of hurt right now. I think Michael Gallup gave you nothing last year. Jalen Tolbert is better than hurt Michael Gallup last year. That's just fair.
Right.
You would imagine that Jalen Brooks is better than he was last year, and Flournoy is here. Kevontae Turpin should be better than he was last year. You would imagine that your wide receiver core is better than it was last year. You're talking about a offense that was nonsense for 6 weeks that ended the top 3 offense by the end of the year. They ended up in the top 3 in points. I imagine you can do the same thing with this group of guys. It just depends on your play call.
Yeah, I think the play caller has a lot to do with this too. I would say this group has probably been below my expectations.
Definitely.
I would say that. And it maybe not all their fault, but I felt like that I thought maybe the thing with Ceedee Lamb missing all the training camp was a huge detriment. I didn't want to believe it. I thought, man, these guys are veterans, but that's but you are seeing, I do like that you're seeing some improvement from Tolbert and things like that. Sure. I do think it's the way they should use Turpin more. There's got to be a better way here, but I would say probably below my expectations going in. Sure. Cornerbacks next year, Voch. Cornerbacks. We're going to go offense, defense. We're going to do this. If you're kind of following along, we're going to do this for the next few nights. We're going to do these positions, and we're going to go through and talk about these guys the way we have. First one I want to ask you about is Trayvon Diggs.
Brian, you think he's having some lingering effects, or are we just overreacting a little bit?
I think when he misses with his hands at the line of scrimmage, it's really, really tough for him to make plays.
Yeah.
I don't know if he necessarily plays off very well. There's times when he drives on the ball. He didn't, in that Baltimore game on the 3rd down, I wish he was a little bit closer, and on that 3rd down play to knock the ball down. I think he's in a little bit of a spot right now where there's been some good and there's been some bad. I don't want to focus on the tackling part of it because I think there's other things, there's some corners that just aren't that way. I think he could be very, I think when he wants to tackle, he can be good at it. When he doesn't want to tackle, he's not worth a damn to you as a cornerback.
Sure.
Now, the questions I have about him is, when he plays press coverage, he's got, I don't know necessarily how well he really, really, really runs. And he might be dealing with that because of the knee stuff, coming back off that. But we'd seen some games where he looked like that he was, he was like playing a little bit better, moving a little bit better. But man, like the other day when he missed Williams with his hands on that jam, it's dead. He's dead. The separation was there. I mean, he had to try and chase that thing down. I would say right now, his play has me concerned. And I'll ask you this question because I asked my guys on the radio this question today. More concerned about his play or Zach Martin's play?
I'm super concerned about Zach Martin. I think Trey just probably got to get his confidence back. Diggs didn't normally let people run past him. Like if somebody ran past him,
it's crazy how people are getting separation on him.
Yeah, it'll be like a double move, and that'll be the reason why they ran past Trey. People are just running past Trey right now, and I think that may be a confidence thing or something like that. I think he can overcome that. Brother Zach is old.
Yeah,
brother Zach is old, and I don't think he's coming back. Bryan Broaddus. I think we misevaluated Zach in a way that we go, all right, Zach may not be the best guard of all time right now, but he's still got to be top 3 or 4, right? Yeah. I think Zach Martin is trickling down to becoming like an average guard in the league.
He's got to hit the wall a little bit, huh?
He's hit that wall, and to be fair, Brian, I think, when he's dealing with let's just call him like a regular guy, I think he's fine when he's dealing with a regular guy. Travis Jones, Aleem McNeil, some of the guys that's been beating up on him lately, Brian, like Dexter, like those are dudes, Brian. Those are dudes. Yeah. And Zach Martin is normally responsible for taking care of those dudes, but he hasn't. Can't been. But we'll talk about Zach Martin on O-line day.
Yeah, I know we will. I was funny. Because I think that your people, like my guys on the show on 105.3 The Fan, were they were worried about Martin as well. They think that Bland will come back around on this.
Sure.
Okay. How about this one? Jordan Lewis.
I'm super impressed with Jordan Lewis, man. I'm just super, super competitive. Man, I love mental toughness in a player. When me and you do the draft show and we just do draft off season stuff, one thing you're going to hear me say a lot is like mentally tough, right? Because mentally tough means a lot to me. Part of the reason why I don't like some other players, we'll talk about them later, but Jordan Lewis just a dude that since he got here, he ain't been big enough, he ain't been tall enough, and we trying to give your job away. Oh, you can only play nickel. And Jordan said, well, I'll play outside too. I'll go compete with whoever. I'll go line up against the number 1 guy. I'll do whatever. And Jordan Lewis, after a catastrophic injury, in the later years of his cornerback, is playing the best corner on his team right now, Bryan Broaddus. So, and look, this ain't me being phony. This is me saying I was wrong, Brian, because I was ready to roll out that Kalen Carson, Deron Bland look. I was ready to roll that out. And the year before that, Gilmore, Bland, Diggs. I'm ready to get Jordan Lewis up out of here, but he keeps showing up. He keeps competing. He keeps being a great leader. I'm thoroughly impressed with Jordan Lewis. Glad he's here.
I'll tell you, Jordan Lewis, you're absolutely right. I was one of the guys on the Carson bandwagon of like, hey, if you can get Carson to play at a high level, then you can move Bland to the inside and play, But Jordan Lewis, you've played 6 games, and I think if you watched all 6 games, Jordan Lewis hadn't had a bad game. Mm-hmm. I think there's been some times where others around him have kind of let him down. I think Jordan Lewis, if you want to know the most consistent guy down in, down out, I think Jordan Lewis is your guy on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure.
He's been outstanding. How about Kalen Carson then as a rookie? A small body of work. Can you draw anything from his work so far?
Kalen Carson's had a acceptable game, and then he's had a bad game, and I think it all depends on how he bounces back from that bad game. I think Baltimore went out there and kind of whatever. But was it Baltimore, or was it it was one of them games, Kalen Carson, like they were targeting Carson. It was bad for him. But I think it's all about his bounce back. Now, sooner or later, Bland will be here. I thought we were going to see some Bland last week. I guess he wasn't ready.
No.
I thought we were going to see Carson last week, but we need him though. Regardless, we need both those guys because Armani, man, I don't know if you're gonna ask me about him, but whatever. But
I'll ask you about Armani then.
All right, cool.
I mean, it's from a guy that just basically from the practice squad, the elevations. I honestly didn't know a whole hell of a lot about him.
Sure.
And I thought he's thrown in some terrible situations, and I think that there's been some times where God, I've seen guys that they've been on this squad that played far worse than this guy.
Sure.
It's not. It's not to the point where, gosh, this guy's killing you. But, you need Carson and Bland and those guys back out there. But for somebody that's probably your sixth corner, I can't say many really terrible things about him.
Sure. So as far as Carson goes, he's he hasn't lived up to what we thought it was going to be.
I agree with that.
But it's kind of early though. It's still kind of soon for Carson.
I agree on that. How about Andrew Booth?
He can tackle.
Yeah.
He can tackle, but boy, they look for him. Him and Armani. If you a good team, if you're a good team, the first thing you're gonna do is see if 27 is out there and what Booth is 26, 25, 26. You looking for Booth and you looking for Oruwariye. If they out there, throw the ball deep and see what happens. What happens. But Booth is another one of those guys. We didn't expect him to come in and play for us or whatever, but he's had to play. But shouts out to him for playing. But I hope we don't need him very much later in the season.
Has Israel Mukwamu taken a step back?
I think
the fact that they're throwing out all these other guys other than him.
Sure, 100%. I think our biggest excitement for Izzy in terms of can we stack something on top of a good game was the playoff game in Tampa Bay. We went out there versus Godwin and just kind of had a cool little day versus him. And he never got back to that form. And there's some internet, just some theories going around, bros, that say, well, Dan Quinn didn't like him. Okay, well, Dan's gone. Dan's gone, and we're getting kind of the same thing, the same up and down behavior. I think sometimes Izzy's a cool player. I think sometimes Izzy kind of gets lost, and he's a little long, and he can't turn as fast because he's long. So, but I'm very much so let down. He's a guy that keep getting the job, though. He's on the team. He keeps getting his job. He's hanging around, Brian. But he's never matched that playoff game versus Tampa.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. You're right. He keeps hanging around. I wonder if Al Harris has something to do with that, good or bad. I wonder if Al Harris is the one like, okay, I like his length. I like the way he moves. I like how he competes. I wonder if Al is the guy that's championing him for that, or is somebody in the front office. And maybe Al's like, well, the kid can't play and I'm not going to play him.
Sure.
Because they will throw others out there before they throw him out there.
Sure will.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned Bland about coming back. Expectations for Bland, San Francisco week. Say he comes back, which I think all indications are pointing that was the week that they were going to try and get him ready to go. So expectations, what you feel about that, if you could.
Man, I don't know how bad his injury was, but seeing Diggs and how he's kind of back or whatever, man, I'm like, I just want to make sure Bland got all his time in. I want to make sure he's got all his healing done. This is a hell of a game to come back in. Come back versus some dudes in San Fran. That had you looking crazy out here. So I'm hoping that there are no lingering effects. I hope that Deron Bland can come in and play. But this is a tough first game to come back on. A tough first game.
Yeah, I agree. My expectations are I know that he's been working hard to get ready. I don't need him to have any setbacks. But yeah, they're going to this. I'm interested to see how Kansas City plays San Francisco this week and watching that tape. Who do they attack and how does San Francisco attack Kansas City's defense? But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for Bland. They need to get back on that train of trying to create some turnovers here.
Sure.
And maybe Bland will be that guy that can kind of get them. They've dropped some interceptions, man. Hooker's dropped some. I mean, they could have had some turnovers.
Sure.
But they could have fallen on some balls
Yeah.
that have been, sack, fumble, ball on the ground, and we're messing around and not falling on it. They're letting somebody outwork them to get to the ball. So,
sure.
I just, with this group though, I think they're going to need a lot more. Let me ask you the same question then.
Sure.
The expectations of the group, have they been met, or are we still struggling there with some of the play?
I think we're struggling
as a group.
As a group, I think we're struggling because the last 3 home games, teams have put up 40 some points against us. Like teams are putting up. And look, I understand that the run game is a problem, but it ain't all been run. It's been we're not covering very well. So I think the corners have done a poor job thus far. I do think that Bland will help us with that.
Yeah.
Because, just because you're good at one corner doesn't mean that you're good at the other one. We'll just throw the ball to cornerback 2 all day and get you. But I think adding Bland along with Lewis, along with Diggs, I think that'll make the unit better as a whole. But they've been doing a poor job, in my opinion.
I would say they're below where I thought they were going to be.
Sure.
I really, and unfortunately Bland got hurt. That your best secondary player, your best corner player is Lewis.
Sure.
He's been the best by far. All right, my friend, how about tomorrow we do offensive line and defensive line? What do you say about that?
Is Lewis your best player because Bland is hurt and Diggs is kind of going through something, or is Lewis just going out there kicking ass, Bryan? I know the answer. I just want to hear you say.
I think Lewis is just kicking ass.
Yeah.
And then Bland's been hurt.
Sure.
I've been, I had my concerns about Diggs because I was hearing whispers about rehab stuff.
Sure.
The closer he got to camp, the more serious he got about it. And so I was kind of like, well, I don't know what to really expect here. I was hopeful, that he put in work to get ready for camp, and then, he worked through camp and, got involved a little bit. And, so maybe he's struggling with that right now, but we're 6 weeks into this thing.
Sure.
There's been some plays that he needs to make. I mean, and I am not going to focus on salary contracts or any of that stuff. Hey, they negotiated that. The Cowboys paid it. That's their deal. But you need to play. You just as a player, you need to play better. I don't care about the money. You as a player need to come up with more plays, deflect more balls, get your hands on potentially some interceptions, play tighter in coverage, carry routes across the field. There's a lot of things this cornerback group needs to do, and hopefully having Bland back will help. But in my opinion, of guys we mentioned, I just kind of feel like that Lewis has been the best one. If everybody played to the level of Lewis, I think this would be a better group overall. Yeah. And I don't think they're playing to the level, that they're capable of.
Bryan Broaddus, boy, we got some tearing down to do, boy. We're gonna talk about some more of these players this week. But it's all fair analysis. We want these guys to be great. We want them to play better. So we'll be doing this all week. So y'all be sure to tap in with us. You have any idea of who we're doing tomorrow? We're doing
I believe let's get the offensive line and then the defensive line. That will knock that one out tomorrow. And then we'll just kind of continue on and knock these groups out as we get going and give you the best thoughts that we have. And as always, look forward to your comments in the section. I'll do my very best to answer any questions you have, good or bad, and we'll go from there, my brother.
VOCHLONBARDI BRYN Broaddus. We love y'all to pieces. Until next time, Crown.